The courtroom was so quiet, it was as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Not a whisper, not a shuffle, only the distant scratch of a pen, the creak of an old bench under shifting weight, and the hum of fluorescent lights above. The center of that stillness sat a little girl. Her name was Laya, 8 years old. Pale yellow dress. The kind of dress a child wears on Easter Sunday or when they want to feel brave. Today was neither of those days. She sat on the witness stand, her legs too short to reach the floor, her heels dangling in space. Her hands were folded neatly in her lap, clutching a faded stuffed rabbit with one ear flopped permanently forward. Her dark hair was pulled into a loose braid, the tie slipping slowly undone. Her face, expressionless. Her eyes, searching, but not at her mother, not at her father. She was looking at the dog, Charlie, a golden retriever with a coat like warm honey and eyes like deep still water. He sat just outside the wooden barrier of the courtroom gallery, wearing a red vest stitched with the words, "Service dog, do not pet." Charlie didn't blink, didn't twitch. He was watching Laya the way only animals can, as if her smallest breath meant something. 2 years ago, Laya had stopped speaking, not out of defiance, but because the day her world cracked open, her voice fell into the void and never came back. It was her father. One moment of rage, one terrifying night. No. One knew the full story. The bruises faded, but something inside her stayed silent. Therapists tried. Medications came and went. Nothing worked, except Charlie. He was more than a support dog. He was the only thing she trusted. Judge Holloway, a woman in her 60s with silver hair, pulled into a severe knot, adjusted her glasses and cleared her throat. She had a reputation for being strict, the kind of judge who respected order more than sentiment. "Laya," she said gently, peering over her glasses. "I'm going to ask you a question now. You don't have to speak. If you can answer by nodding or shaking your head, that's okay." Laya didn't respond, not with a nod, not with a glance. Her fingers gripped the stuffed rabbit tighter. Her breathing grew shallow, but her gaze shifted, just for a second, to Charlie. The cow. Dog didn't move, but something was about to. Without a word, Laya lifted her right hand. The movement was so small it almost didn't exist. Just her pinky finger tracing a delicate circle in the air, no bigger than a coin. Charlie's ears twitched. His body, still as stone a second before, came to life. He stood up, calmly, purposefully. Without prompting or command, he trotted toward the witness stand, his steps slow and sure. His presence didn't disturb the silence. It deepened it. Laya watched him approach. Her hand dropped, back into her lap. Then with her left hand, she tapped her chest. Once, twice, Charlie barked. Just once. It was soft, but in that quiet courtroom, it might as well have been thunder. All heads turned. The bailiff stepped forward instinctively, unsure whether to act. The judge leaned forward, puzzled. Her gavel hovered above the desk, but didn't fall. "Ms. Reyes?" Judge Holloway asked, turning toward the back of the courtroom. The psychologist, seated quietly until now, stood up slowly. Her face was pale. "That's the sequence," she said. "The signal." "Signal for what?" the judge asked. "She and Charlie practiced it for months. It's what she does when she's ready to tell the truth but can't use words." The room held still again. "She gave me something," the psychologist added. "Yesterday. She said, 'If Charlie barks, give this to the judge.'" She stepped forward, holding out a small white envelope. Judge Holloway reached for it with trembling fingers. She opened it slowly, carefully. Inside was a single sheet of paper, child's drawing in thick, uneven crayon lines. It showed a little girl, Laya, crouched in the corner of a room, hands over her head. A towering man loomed above her, face twisted in rage, fists clenched. In the bottom right corner of the picture was Charlie, mid-bark, his body planted between the man and the girl. The judge turned the page over. In block letters, carefully written, "He says he loves me, but I'm only safe when he's not near. A gasp escaped from someone in the gallery. Another whispered, "Oh my God!" Laya's father stood suddenly. "This is ridiculous. That dog is trained. She could have—" "Sit down." Judge Holloway's voice wasn't loud, but it cut. Clean, he froze. "If you speak again without being asked, I will have you removed." Silence returned. Charlie sat beside Laya, unmoving. Laya didn't flinch, she didn't cry. She just sat there watching Charlie, trusting him to do what she couldn't. Then she spoke. Her voice was raspy, barely a breath, but it carried. "Charlie knows who keeps me safe," she said. "He remembers everything, even when I couldn't." No one moved. Even the court reporter's fingers hovered mid-air. Judge Holloway stared at the child. And for a moment, everything, procedure, protocol, precedent, fell away. What was left was simple truth, and one bark that said more than 1,000 words. Deliver emotional peak, Laya's breakthrough, and shift in courtroom power. For several seconds after Laya's voice broke the silence, no one breathed. Even the gavel on Judge Holloway's bench seemed to hold itself still, uncertain whether it would be needed again. The room felt suspended, like the air itself had paused out of respect. Judge Holloway leaned forward slowly, both hands pressed to the bench as if steadying herself. Her stern exterior faltered for the briefest moment. "You remember, sweetheart?" she asked gently. Laya nodded, her chin trembling. Her hands still clutched the stuffed rabbit, but her eyes never left Charlie. The dog hadn't moved, hadn't blinked. He just sat, silent and steady, her shield, her translator. "Do you want to say anything else?" the judge asked. Laya hesitated. Then quietly, she said, "He told me not to tell. But Charlie knew. So I practiced, so I could tell you without saying it." The psychologist stepped forward again. "We spent months building that sequence. Circle, chest tap, bark. It's her version of testifying." Judge Holloway looked down at the crayon drawing again. At the crudeness of it, the rawness. It was more than testimony. It was memory, as permanent as any scar. The judge looked up and met the mother's eyes. "Ma'am," she said, her voice thick but clear, "I'm granting you full custody, effective immediately." The mother burst into tears, not with shock but with release. Years of tension poured out in one trembling exhale. She covered her mouth, nodding through sobs. Laya's father stood again, this time more out of disbelief than anger. "But she's just a kid. That's a dog. You're going to throw me out because of—" The bailiff moved quickly, quietly, placing himself between the man and the bench. "Sir," the judge said firmly, "leave this courtroom. Now." He opened his mouth, then closed it. The bailiff guided him toward the exit. No struggle, just the dull echo of shoes on marble as he walked away. Judge Holloway stayed seated. She looked again at Laya, then at Charlie. "You've said more in one signal than most adults say in 1,000 words," she whispered. Then she reached for the gavel, not to strike it in judgment, but to set it down. Soft, reverent. The session was over, but something much deeper had begun. Objective. Show resolution and hope through healing. The story after the court 6 months had passed since the courtroom fell into silence, not from fear or confusion, but from reverence. Now, under a warm spring sun, the sound was different. Birds chirped in leafy trees. A gentle breeze carried the scent of fresh-cut grass. A laugh, short, soft, real, echoed from a bench near the park's edge. Laya was sitting there, legs now slightly longer, but still swinging gently off the side, her shoes scuffed, her braid neater. On her lap was a sketch pad, a box of colored pencils beside her. Charlie lay curled at her feet, head resting between his paws, vest still present, but now faded a little from sun and time. She was drawing again. Not in fear, not from memory, but from imagination. A little boy walked past with his mother, then paused. His eyes caught Charlie's. "Can I pet your dog?" he asked. Laya looked up. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she tapped her chest. Twice, Charlie barked once, tail wagging. The boy laughed. "So that means yes?" Laya nodded. Only if he says it's okay. The boy crouched beside the dog, his fingers brushing Charlie's fur with the kind of gentleness only children seem to understand. Laya smiled, a full, calm smile. And then, for the first time in a very long time, she laughed. Not out of relief, but out of joy. Charlie's tail thumped against the grass. The mother of the boy looked over, surprised by the sound. "Is that your service dog?" she asked. Laya nodded. "He helped me remember how to talk," she said. The mother looked puzzled. "He taught you words?" "No," Laya replied softly. "He taught me I was safe." The moment passed like a breeze, easy, almost unnoticed. But it meant everything. Later, Laya packed up her drawing things and stood. Charlie rose beside her. They walked across the park together, her hand resting lightly on his back. People turned to look, not because they recognized them, but because something about them radiated quiet strength. That night, Laya added a new drawing to her wall. It was of a little girl and a dog on a park bench. Smiling, she titled it in block letters, "The Day I Laughed Again." Sometimes the bravest guardians don't wear uniforms. They don't carry badges, and they never raise their voices. Sometimes they come wrapped in golden fur, with eyes full of memory and patience, and a bark that speaks volumes. Charlie had never testified in court, but what he did was far more powerful. He bridged a gap between silence and safety, between fear and the truth. He didn't just help a little girl speak, he helped the world hear her. As the days passed and seasons turned, Charlie remained by Laya's side. He was there when she picked up a pencil again, when she smiled without looking over her shoulder, when she spoke a full sentence to a stranger, unprompted. He didn't wag in celebration. He didn't need to, because Charlie understood. His job wasn't to celebrate the moment. His job was to guard the road that led her there. And he still waited for the signal. From the gallery to the park bench, from whispered testimony to bright sidewalk chalk, Laya had built something lasting, a story not about what was broken, but what endured. And at the center of that story was a dog who had no lines, no speeches, no medals, just presence, just love, just one bark when it mattered most. If this story moved you, share it with someone who believes in quiet courage, and stay tuned. In our next chapter, a different child walks into a courtroom. But this time, Charlie's not just there for comfort, he's the key witness.